That night, the fishermen of Ijoya were excited. They had sailed their boat far into the sea and had caught a lot of fish. They were excited because when those fish were sold, they would make a lot of money. As they sailed back home, the moon was high in the sky, guiding their path. It was as if the gods themselves were working in their favor. But they had no idea just how bad things were about to get for them. As their boat sailed the sea, a fisherman at the helm of the boat looked out into the sea. Far ahead, there was a big black cloud hovering just above the sea. It was so black it was almost like a shadow. None of the fishermen had seen such a thing before. At once, all of them fell quiet as their boat kept moving. They were sailing towards the blackish cloud. Their boat was rocked, and they could hear the crashes of the waves hitting them. But they were too concerned with the strange sight right before them. As they got closer to the cloud, Bosu, the leader of the fishermen, became uncomfortable. He didn't want to lead them into something he had no idea about. He immediately ordered them to sail around the cloud, instead of through it. As they continued sailing, covering the distance, the cloud got bigger, and as they closed in on it, it also began to take shape before them. The edges became more rugged and finely cut, and they realized that they weren't staring at clouds. They were staring at smoke, plumes of smoke that were coming off a massive boat. The boat was more than 5 times the size of the fisherman's boat, and as they saw it, all of them were terrified. The only people who used smoke to mask their approach were pirates. Bosu knew at once that they were about to be attacked. Just then, they tried to steer their boat away, but it was too late. The pirates were now too close. Arrows attached to ropes were shot into their boat, and the pirates swung themselves onto it. In the blink of an eye, a dozen pirates were in the boat. They were armed with swords and daggers, and they all looked mean and evil. The fishermen were powerless against them. They were easily overpowered and tied up. Then, the pirates went to the lower deck of the boat and pulled out all their catch for the night. All the fish that had been gathered, the pirates were taking them all. Bosu tried to beg them to leave some behind so their families wouldn't starve, but he was punched hard on the jaw and ordered to shut up, or he would get even a worse beating. All of a sudden, an uncommon stillness fell over the boat. It was so profound that everyone noticed it at once. There was a powerful silence that made them all uncomfortable. Yet, none of them could figure out what it was. But as Bosu looked around frantically, he noticed that so many things had changed. Their boat was now still. It was no longer rocking on the waves. This was because the waves themselves were gone. With his heart beating heavily in his chest, he looked out over the sea, and he saw a heavy white fog descend on the water. There were surges under the surface, and he recognized it. Someone was swimming towards them at top speed. With a loud cry, a woman jumped out of the water, her blue eyes dazzling. She landed right on the fisherman's boat. Upon seeing her, Bosu and his friends sighed with relief. They were saved. This was Amara, the guardian and commander of the seas of Ijoya. The pirates went after her, trying to subdue her. One of them raised his sword high, trying to bring it down on her head, but she easily dodged it and punched him across his jaw. The punch was so powerful that he flew through the air and crashed through the hull of the boat and straight into the water below. But he didn't get fell on the water surface because while he was midair, a shark came out of the water and grabbed him. The others attacked her with everything that they had. She blocked and parried their blows, punching and hitting them. A resounding slap to one knocked him out completely. She grabbed 2 more by the front of their chest and threw them overboard where more sharks were waiting. They kept attacking her until she threw 2 more of them overboard, bringing their number down to 6. This time, they were the ones defending themselves from her attacks. Amara was methodical and brutal in her attacks. When she punched, she did it with everything she had. She was always angry, and she took it out on those who dared to mess with the people of Ijoya. She punched one pirate so hard that she felt his ribs break underneath her fist. She threw him overboard as well. This was what she did. Every man she took down, she threw overboard to become food for the creatures of the sea. And she didn't stop until every single pirate was gone. She then stood at the helm, looking at the massive boat that they had arrived in. She raised her hands, calling on her powers. And suddenly, the waves returned, But this time, they were more powerful. They crashed hard against the big boat, forcing it to shake and tumble. The boat turned so much that the logs of wood burning to produce black smoke fell over, setting the boat on fire. But Amara wasn't done just yet. She sent another wave. This one towered high over the boat and then crashed on it. This time, so much water got into the boat that it began to sink. She controlled the water inside the boat and used it to rip it apart, turning it into logs of wood. She watched in satisfaction as the surviving pirates grabbed onto the logs for dear life. Amara warned them to stay away from Ijoya, or next time, she wouldn't let them live. She hurried back to the fishermen and released them from their bonds. When she touched them, her hands were ice cold, causing them to flinch in shock. None of them had any words of thanks for her. They didn't act like she had only just saved their lives and valuables. They instead stayed away from her, almost as if they didn't want to get in contact with her any more than they had to. Amara didn't care about appreciation, though. All that mattered to her was that her people were safe and sound. Once she made sure that every fisherman was accounted for, she returned to the helm of the boat, and controlling the sea, she sped them back to land. Once they got off the boat, the fishermen fell to their knees in happiness, praising the gods for keeping them safe. And without any word to Amara, they took their fish and went home. It was almost as if she had not gone out of her way to protect them. This had always been the way it was between Amara and the people of Ijoya. Nobody knew where she was originally from. As a toddler, she was found in a basket made of reeds, floating on the sea. Ijoya was a fishing kingdom. All their livelihood relied heavily on the sea, and so they had a lot of beliefs about it. But when they found a toddler floating on the sea, they had no idea what it could mean. Some thought it was an omen because the child was obviously rejected by the sea. Others thought it was a blessing, a child given to them by the sea. Still, they were all scared of her and kept her at arm's length. There were still so many things about her that baffled the people of Ijoya. Her eyes were unnaturally blue, and her body was always cold. But when she stepped into the water, supernatural things happened. The seas parted and waves formed just by her will. She could command the creatures of the sea and get them to do whatever she wanted. It was clear that she was touched by the gods, and it made the people more wary of her. She was an outcast living on the outskirts of the kingdom, just close to the sea, and for a long time she was on her own. But things changed when she became a teenager. That was when she met Dari, a former soldier. Dari was the first person who didn't treat her like a leper. While everyone was wary of her, he befriended her and made sure that she had regular meals and was also properly taken care of. He saw her powers as something that could be used to do good, not something to be scared of. The people of Ijoya had never seen anyone like that before, so they were terrified and treated her badly. But he believed that everything happened for a reason. He was sure that the sea had sent Amara to Ijoya for a reason, and he knew that it was only a matter of time before she figured it out. The first time that Amara saved people on the sea, there had been a terrible storm while fishermen were out on the sea. It was such a powerful wave that it tore their boats to shreds. They screamed as they held onto logs of wood, trying not to drown. From her hut, she could hear their screams. She jumped into the water, swimming as fast as she could. With her powers, she used the water to push herself forward, so she could cover more distance faster. She was faster than even the fastest creatures in the sea. When she got there, she calmed the storm and used a gentle wave to return the fishermen to safety. And then, just like now, they weren't appreciative of her efforts. Instead, it became a requirement. They saw that Ijoya had provided a home for her, and she also had to give back to it by protecting the people at sea. None of them loved her. They were simply using her. As a result, the fishermen of Ijoya prospered. They could go anywhere in the sea, no matter how bad the weather was, places that other fishermen couldn't dare. And because they could count on Amara to save them, they succeeded. Amara knew where the best spots were for fishing. Sometimes, she used her powers to call more fish just for the fishermen. It was such a successful scheme that they had so much fish and began selling to neighboring fishing kingdoms. Because when Amara commanded all the fish into Ijoya, those were fish from the other kingdoms. And so, Word spread that the sea seemed to favor the people of Ijoya more, and they were prosperous. That also ended up becoming the start of their recurring problem with pirates. Now and then they were attacked at sea. They came with huge armed boats that were always filled with men who looked like they were ready to commit the worst acts ever imagined. But with Amara around, none of their plans ever worked. They could only access Ijoya through the water, and that water was controlled by her. So, the more enemy boats were sent, the more she capsized them, making sure that not one Ijoya indigene lost their life. And she got no thanks for it because the people believed that it was the least she could do. And now, when she was a full-grown adult, they had not changed. She was still protecting them from their enemies, and they still treated her the same way. And she had stopped caring. She knew that if she took the things the people did to her to heart, they would be the ones to suffer for it. And the last thing she wanted was for people to die just because she became emotional. She would keep using her powers for the good of the people. But sadly, she had no idea just how much things were about to change. In the days after the attack, life returned to normal for Amara. The fishermen sold all the fish they caught that fateful night, and they made a lot of money. One day, Dari was in the market, buying some fruits that he would share with Amara. He saw the trader talking to a strange man that he had never seen before. The trader looked uncomfortable with him, so Dari hurried. But the moment he got there, the strange man turned and hurried away. He asked the trader who the man was, but she said she didn't know. The strange man had introduced himself as Torsu, and to her chagrin, he was asking her about Amara. This made Dari uneasy. He wanted to know why Torsu was inquiring about her. But the trader didn't know either. She didn't care about that. She only cared that Torsu had been more interested in talking about Amara than actually buying her wares. When Dari returned to Amara's hut, he told her about Torsu and warned her to be careful. With her victory over the pirates, she had managed to get the attention of powerful people. He wanted her to be more careful when using her powers and not so destructive anymore. Because the more destructive she got with the pirates and their wares, the more vengeful they would be when they came after her. Amara promised to do as he said, but the next time that they attacked, she went all out. She used her powers to swim quickly through the sea. She landed on the boat, armed with her sword. She then fought all of them. She was so skilled with her sword that none of them could even touch her. When she was done, she sank their boats. 3 boats were carrying about 50 sailors that day. Less than half of them made it back home. About a fortnight after this attack, Amara was at the back of her hut, cooking her supper when she suddenly froze up. She stood still as she listened hard. She had heard a footstep, and she knew that it wasn't Dari. She left what she was cooking and walked to the front of the hut. There she found a man waiting for her. He was Torsu, the man who had been asking around about her in the market. According to him, he was a soldier and was only there as an envoy to his king, Lara. King Lara was the ruler of Kesh, a kingdom on the other side of the sea. She asked Torsu why Lara wanted to see her, and he told her that things were terrible back in Kesh. They were also suffering from pirate attacks. Unlike Ijoya, Kesh was a kingdom that relied heavily on trade with other kingdoms, including Ijoya. But the pirates were a menace. They attacked merchants at sea and carted away their valuables, and this hugely affected their economy. Now they were poor. King Lara was trying to rebuild, but the pirates were still a thorn in his flesh, and even worse, other kingdoms around were focusing on their current weakness and were planning to wage wars on them. If Amara didn't help them, Kesh could be destroyed forever. Torsu then told her that if she accepted the invitation, she would be treated like a special guest of the king, with a real home for her, servants waiting on her at all hours of the day. Torsu promised her that things would be so much better for her in Kesh than it was at Ijoya. She said that she needed some time to think it through. Amara waited for Dari to return home, and at once, she told him everything. Dari wasn't comfortable with this. He wondered why a king would go out of his way to contact her. It was because they wanted something from her. He told her not to go, but Amara had always been stubborn. She told him that the people of Kesh needed her help, and if she could give it, then she had to. Besides, Torsu had promised her that she would be treated as a guest of the king, which meant that she would no longer be treated coldly the way Ijoya had been treating her all her life. The next day, early in the morning before the birds were up, Amara left Ijoya. She jumped into the sea and began to swim as fast as she could go. Using her powers, she moved through the water at top speed, swimming even faster than the dolphins and fish of the sea. Going there by boat would have taken her an entire day, but with her powers, Amara got there in just over an hour. When she stepped out of the sea, her entire body wet. It was as if the people of Kesh knew that she had made up her mind. Torsu was on the shores with soldiers. Some drummers and dancers welcomed her like a long-lost daughter. When they touched her, none of them flinched when they saw how cold she was. As she followed them to the palace, she found herself dancing to the tune of the drums and chants. She was happy because she had never received this kind of welcome before in Ijoya, no matter what she did or how much she stretched herself for them. The people of Kesh were ready to accept her, and at that point, she was ready to accept them as well. But sadly, if she had known what was going to come next, she would have listened to Dari and remained at Ijoya. When Amara got to the palace, she was treated like royalty. King Lara threw a banquet in her honor, and for a long time, the royal entertainers were playing drums and dancing. Later that day, when they had some time alone, King Lara finally told her why he wanted her in Kesh. It wasn't to hurt anyone. He told her that due to the attacks of the pirates on their trade ships, a lot of his people couldn't conduct their trades and, as such, they were starving. He needed her to just help him lead some boats to parts of the sea where his people could find fish. This seemed simple. All he wanted was to feed his starving population. She agreed readily. The next morning, she got on a boat with a bunch of fishermen, and guiding them, she took them to the place where there were a lot of fish to be caught. They sailed far out into the sea, but because she could control the waves and the water, they didn't take time at all. When they returned, the entire kingdom cheered because they brought back a large amount of fish. The next request was a bit different, though. King Lara didn't want her leading the boats anymore. He instead asked her to use her powers to divert the fish and bring them to the shores of Kesh. Amara didn't like this. She knew that if she pulled the fish away from the other parts of the sea, the other kingdoms that relied on them would be affected. The king told her that she only had to target one specific area, which was the neighboring kingdom to Kesh. According to King Lara, most of the pirates lived there, and their king was complicit because they always gave him a cut of their loot. Amara knew that she couldn't just do what the king wanted. She had to do her own investigation. So, early the next morning, she snuck out of the palace and went into the water. She swam in the direction of the neighboring kingdom, and just as King Lara had told her, there were lots of pirate ships docked on the shore. There were so many of them, and even worse, there were a lot of pirates. She decided to take care of the pirates once and for all. That way, they would never trouble the people of both Kesh and Ijoya. As she got out of the sea, the pirates saw her, and many of them immediately recognized her from previous encounters. At once, they attacked her with swords and knives. But she was ready. She dodged their blows, punching them hard one after the other. She stepped backward to avoid a deadly blade that was going for her throat. She then dodged and used her fist to punch the man in his jaw, knocking him unconscious immediately. 2 more pirates took his place, and she just as easily dispatched them. By then, the alarm had been raised and more pirates were coming out. There were more than 100 of them. Amara was outnumbered, and she knew she couldn't handle them alone on land. She ran back into the water, and once her feet touched it, she controlled it and caused powerful waves to rise up. They were so strong that they caused a heavy wind to take over the sea. First, the water was pulled back. Then it began to flow back to the shores, towering more than 3 times the size of the biggest boats docked there. It was a tsunami. The waves carried on and crashed into the boats, filled them with water, and within seconds they shattered to splinters. The sounds of the wood breaking and snapping filled the air as they continued to sink. The waves carried every single boat out to the sea and then scattered them. She didn't even allow the logs of wood to float. She sank those as well. But she wasn't done with the pirates. Still controlling the waves, she flooded the village. Sending water into the place, huts were filled up and pirates were carried. They had to grab onto structures for their dear lives. She didn't want to take any life. She simply wanted to disrupt their operation, and that worked out fine for her. When she was satisfied, she used her powers to control the water back into the sea. By then, every pirate was defeated, running away from her. She went through the kingdom, and one thing stood out to her. It was very small. There was no one else, no women, or even signs of family. It was just an island inhabited by pirates, and they had no king. Lara had lied to her. Once she was done, Amara jumped into the sea and swam back to Kesh. She told King Lara everything that had happened, and he wasn't happy about it at all. Even though his trade ships would never be attacked again, and his kingdom would become prosperous again, he didn't like that she had acted on her own. He told her that all he needed from her was to redirect the shoals of fishers to Kesh. She didn't have to go and attack the pirates. She asked him why he told her that it was a kingdom when it wasn't, but he replied that he only told her what she needed to know. It was at this point that Amara realized that maybe the king was not as righteous as he had claimed to be when she first arrived. The next week, King Lara approached her with an even bigger request. 3 of the neighboring kingdoms around had been plotting to go to war against Kesh. Now, he wanted them punished for it. So, he told Amara to strip their seas bare, make sure no living thing is anywhere near the kingdoms, and also make their seas unsailable so the people would be stuck there. He wanted to inflict a famine on the people and force them to surrender without lifting a single blade. Amara realized that if she did this, she would basically be handing over 3 whole kingdoms to Lara. She couldn't do that, and for the first time since she arrived at Kesh, she refused to do as he asked. She was never going to use her powers to make one kingdom more powerful than the others. However, King Lara had been prepared for that exact response. He told her that she was going to do his bidding or she would regret it immensely. He then revealed that he had already sent soldiers to conquer Ijoya and also take Dari as a prisoner. If she wanted Dari to live, she had to do what he wanted at once. Amara was shocked at this revelation. She found out now that King Lara had kept her at Kesh so that Ijoya would be defenseless. If he managed to conquer her people, then he would be able to take on the other kingdoms along the seacoast. She couldn't allow that to happen. She immediately jumped to her feet and ran out of the palace. She was going towards the sea. King Lara's soldiers tried to stop her, but she fought them off while running as fast as she could. None of them could stop her. She then jumped into the sea and began to swim so fast. Using her powers, she swam faster than she had ever swum in her entire life. She was swimming so fast that she was causing huge waves to trail behind her. She wasn't alone. The more she swam, the more fish and sharks swam with her. She was coming with an army of her own. And all through the journey, all she could think about was Dari's warning. If she had listened to him and not gone to King Lara, none of this would have happened. Now she was terrified that she would lose her friend forever. By the time she got to the shores of Ijoya, there were ships already there. Kesh soldiers had already alighted and were fighting the people. At once, she jumped into action and started fighting them. Before her arrival, the people of Ijoya had been overwhelmed by the soldiers. But now, seeing Amara back and fighting for them, they were encouraged. And so they continued fighting. Their swords were clashing, arrows were flying, and one by one, the bodies of the Kesh soldiers were dropping. Not a single one of them was spared as Amara led the defense, pushing them all out of the kingdom and sending them running back into the sea. They all fled back into their boats, but Amara didn't let them leave. She controlled the waves and caused them to capsize, sinking the vessels at once. As the soldiers struggled to swim, they had no idea that they were being circled by hundreds of sharks that Amara brought with her. Once the battle was over, Amara ran to her hut where Dari was staying. She found him there. Thankfully, he was fine. He told her that some soldiers had tried to take him, but he overpowered them and taught them a very big lesson. She told him everything that she had done in Kesh, and Dari had even more startling news for her. Shortly after she left for Kesh, Dari had started looking into King Lara, and he wanted to know why such a powerful man needed Amara so badly. He realized that unlike what Torsu had claimed, Kesh sailors never suffered attacks from the pirates. Only sailors from the other kingdoms had that misfortune. King Lara himself was running the pirates. The second he said this, Amara believed him totally. It made sense why he was so angry when he found out she destroyed the pirate ship and flooded their island. He never expected her to take things that far. And sending soldiers to destroy Ijoya was his revenge. She was going to make him pay dearly. In a fit of rage, Amara jumped into the sea and swam back to Kesh. It was as if King Lara was expecting her. He had soldiers stationed everywhere, right from the shores of the sea. But she wasn't deterred. She was going to ask him why a king with soldiers also chose to work with deadly pirates. The soldiers came at her, swinging their swords hard at her. She immediately controlled the water, using it to push the soldiers away from her. A huge flood came in behind her and flooded the place, packing up all the soldiers and taking them to the sea. She didn't stop. More soldiers tried to stop her from getting to the palace, but she fought all of them and beat them seriously. Then, just as she got to the palace, Torsu attacked her with a long spear. He tried striking her from a distance, but she dodged the deadly swipe, grabbed the head of the spear in her palm, then, with her free hand, punched the middle of the spear, breaking it into two. She then grabbed him by the front of his chest and flung him away so that he flew through the air and crashed through a wall, taking it down. Amara went after him and hit him with punches. He pulled out a dagger and tried to strike her with it, but she dodged it as well, grabbed his wrist and twisted it until he let it go. She then punched him on the jaw once. It was so hard that he fell unconscious immediately. Finally, no one else stood between her and King Lara. She demanded to know why he would do all that, and why he even called her. He confessed that he was indeed the mastermind behind the pirates. He wanted to take over the other neighboring kingdoms, but they were too powerful for him, so he used the pirates to weaken their defenses. He knew that if he used his soldiers, the kingdoms would see it as an act of war. And if he also went into open war, they would band together against him and he wouldn't stand a chance. Unfortunately, Amara was frustrating his efforts. She kept sinking his boats and beating them up. That was why he took her in, so he could work for him. But she ended up flooding the island and destroying the pirates' home. He went after Ijoya, knowing that if he managed to take it, nothing and no one could stand in his way. And yet again, she had spoiled his plans. Despite his inhumane acts, the king was unremorseful. He laughed when Amara told him that he had to pay for what he did. He told her that nothing could ever happen. He then tried to attack her, but she easily beat him up. Then, she controlled the water and used it to destroy all his soldiers' weapons. The water came and carried them all away, leaving Kesh defenseless. She then warned him that if he ever tried to go to war with any of the kingdoms again, she would bury Kesh in water. Terrified, he swore never to try it again. Amara returned to the water and swam home. When she got there, the people of Ijoya were happy to see her. For the first time, they welcomed her like a long-lost relative. She didn't get any cold treatment anymore. They had seen that they were almost destroyed without her, and it made them regret every bad thing they did to her. They apologized and swore that they would be better people from then on. Amara was happy about this. She finally felt like this was her home and her people loved her. She remained in the hut, keeping watch on the seas to protect everyone who used it. Not just sailors from Ijoya, but sailors from all the kingdoms surrounding the sea. As long as she was active, everyone was safe. That was how she became a legend, and her name was Amara, the guardian of the sea. Today, the world knows Aquaman as the king of the seas, a warrior who commands the tides, who speaks to the creatures of the deep, who moves through the ocean like it is a part of his own body, a protector who stands between the world and everything that would rise up from beneath the waves to destroy it. The world calls it fiction, but long before that story was ever drawn on a page, Africa already knew the truth of it. The idea of a being who could command the sea, who could raise the waves with a thought, summon the sharks like an army, and part the water with a will alone, is older than any comic book. It lived in the oldest legends of the coastal kingdoms of Africa, in the tales of those who came from the water, who belonged to it, who carried its power in their cold blue eyes and used it to guard the people who lived along its shores. Amara was one of those legends. A child found floating in a basket on the open sea, feared before she could speak, called a curse and an omen by the very people she was sent to protect. She had eyes the color of deep water and skin as cold as the ocean itself. And when she stepped into the sea, the world bent to her. The waves rose, the creatures answered, and the tides moved at her command. But her people never loved her. They used her. They took her protection and gave her nothing but cold looks and colder hearts. They let her fight their enemies, feed their families, and shield their shores, and they never once thanked her for it. And still, she protected them anyway, because Amara understood something most people never learn, that you do not guard people because they deserve it. You guard them because it is who you are. She could have let the pirates take them. She could have let the sea swallow them whole. Instead, she stood between her people and every danger that came from the water, again and again, for a village that treated her like a stranger. And when a king finally tried to use her power to enslave the world, to starve kingdoms and drown the free, she turned the whole ocean against him. She wore no golden armor. She carried no trident forged by gods. She was an African woman with the sea in her blood and the tide at her command, a guardian who protected a world that feared her, until the day it finally understood what it would have lost without her. The King of the Seas was never simply the invention of a comic book studio. The blueprint was drawn on the shores of ancient Africa, in the legends of those who came from the water and gave their whole lives to guard the people who lived beside it. Amara's story was almost lost beneath the waves of time, but some legends refused to stay buried. This was hers, and now you know where the legend of the Sea's Guardian truly began.